Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use.
Well,
Good morning.
welcome back. We're in a special episode of Roots and Ruminants, broadcasting live from Willow Lake, South Dakota, and Madison, Wisconsin. Are you in Willow Lake this morning, Jared?
I am. We are states away.
States away.
700 miles
I'm
away.
at the World Dairy Expo. Get a beautiful background of the Brown Swiss show going on right now. Pretty awesome. Got about, what do you think, 18 cows in there?
Yeah, you can just barely see them in the corner there.
Can you see them okay?
Yeah, you better.
All right.
There you
Why don't you go ahead and place that class
Brown
for
Swiss
us?
or Jersey? Is it Brown Swiss or Jersey?
Oh, it's Jersey.
Oh, okay. I screwed you
Yeah,
because I asked about the
it's Jersey. Don't know the breeds very well in the dairy industry, but we're going to talk about the dairy industry today.
We are.
We got like a full episode of dairy questions, dairy chatter from the World Dairy Expo. It's only fitting. Our graze it, harvest it, rent it out is themed around the dairy industry. Talk about some different feed stuff. Talk about the show world. So we actually have a fun little episode. Did Katie get you that jingle for the graze it, harvest it, rent it out?
No,
She didn't get that to you?
I haven't listened to it yet. No.
All right, I guess we'll not have the jingle today, but maybe next time, Katie, we can get that jingle ready.
Oh, yeah, the kids were going to do it. I forgot.
The kids were supposed to make that with their recorders in third grade class.
They haven't even got the recorders yet. I'm pretty sure you're not going to want to hear it the first day.
They don't have the recorders yet. Okay. It's all right.
I kind of forgot about that. Good.
Okay, so
stuff.
Jared, let's talk about the World Dairy Expo. This is a big deal. I don't know if this is a big deal. This is the first time I've been here.
This is your first time. Your first World Dairy Expo.
Yeah.
First expo.
Yeah.
Yep.
First one.
Yeah.
But it's huge. Vendors from all over. I mean, this is it truly is a world event. All sorts of people from all over the country coming here. So it's pretty fascinating.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly international. Incredibly international. A lot of people come in and visit from different countries. I mean, the seed companies would bring people in from all over the world, kind of constantly. They're buying U.S. dairy genetics and exporting them all over the place. So yeah, I haven't been to Expo in a long time. I went there probably 3 years in a row back in my Transova Genetics days, 09, 10, 11, somewhere in there. But miss it. It's fun. It's a fun place. Very, very professionally done. It is like one of the classiest shows you'll ever go to, all the way around.
I couldn't believe it walking through the barn last night. The displays that the breeders have in the alleys next to their cows are phenomenal. I mean, we're talking like 10 by 10 banners of pictures of their farm and pictures of their family, and obviously pictures of the champion cows that they've had in the past, and like just beautiful cabinets, like nicer than my kitchen cabinets in the barn, with racks of trophies and pictures and bottles of booze, and like it's classy. Really cool.
They'll set up like little tents for, I mean, I don't know if you said you went to Milk Source last night or not, but like, for example, one of them, they'll have a tent set up with like a meeting space in it for like meetings. So they can have these one-on-one meetings. And there's all these other meeting rooms up on the top floor, overlooking it. All the suites that oversee that convention center you're in all turn into like meeting rooms you can rent out. So if you can get a meeting room for the week and then just have it, but tons and tons of like one-on-one meetings and stuff happen. And yeah, so I've never like, it's odd to go to a livestock exposition and see, a breeder, an exhibitor set up a conference room next to their cattle for the purpose of one-on-one individual meetings about business.
The thing that I didn't quite realize was the connection that there is from with the show industry and the commercial dairymen. Like they're still very much involved on the same path.
There are a lot of the same families. I mean, it'd be different. It's starting to be, and even more all the time, diverging genetic pools that they're using for their commercial dairies and their, kind of show herds. But they're not mutually exclusive either. So yeah, that is, I would say, quite a few. Not some of the largest, most corporate, but quite a few of the large, prominent dairymen have investments in high-end donor cows and some of the cows that you're going to be seeing here today and will be coming in to watch and see how they do it. It's like a futurity to some degree. It's almost like, you come
Sure.
and you watch up at the studios and see how that goes. Not many of them are keeping them at their place. There's not many of these cows that are going to be in the ring today that are going to be roaming around a 5,000 cow dairy anytime real soon. But the person who owns, invests, and runs a 5,000 cow dairy may very well be a part owner in
Hmm.
some of the cows that are going to be let in as class winners and champions.
One of the things that you see in the sheep industry is disconnect between the show industry and the commercial or production setting. Like you're gonna get, so we'll take a set of Katahdins down to Louisville, and any of the sheep there are generally not being raised in a production setting. And I mean, it's just the ones that are being pushed to show, um, but yeah, so it's kind of cool to see that there's still a connection between the two, and it still does matter. Like we want these things to look good, but they got to milk and produce, and so it's pretty cool.
So, so in the dairy, there was I've been out of the dairy genetics world for quite some time, so I'm not an expert on it. But I'm assuming I hope we have a large dairy listening crowd on our Roast and Ruminants podcast. But I'm assuming most of our core listener group is probably more beef and sheep,
Yeah,
probably primarily beef focused. So, in if anybody in the beef world and genetics has ever studied the work of like Dr. Bonsma out of South Africa, wrote a book called Man Must Measure, a really big proponent of linear measurement and things like that. So the dairy industry has this classification system for, I'm assuming it's 100 years, probably since the advent of Land Grant University, where they have professionally trained classifiers come out and classify cows, right? And so at certain ages, a cow can get up to a certain classification. They're not doing linear measurements, but at the same time, they're taking very phenotypic, and so it's a scoring system. So it's not like a good, bad, or like A, B, C, D rating. You actually have to give a numerical score to every kind of component, like pastern scent or cannon length or sharpness at the withers, whatever it might be. So you have to do all that. These cows end up with scores. So like these really, really good Holstein cows you're going to see are going to be excellent 94s, 95s, potentially 96s. There's been a few 97s over the years. And they're going to get that linear classification. So uh, all that data has fed into a central system that has allowed genetic selection for it. So there is now genetic tests and EPDs based on phenotypic traits that actually have a tremendous amount of bearing, right? You can make a lot of phenotypic predictions based on structure, based on genomic information, which is kind of wild, and it took a tremendous amount of database to do that. The point being is that there was like TPI and net merit were the two different ways that you could kind of select for from an index standpoint for a long time in Holstein. TPI cows are what you're watching, in the ring there throughout this right in the Holstein show. Those are a tight productivity index, and that's very based on cows that look really good. They tend to be very large. They tend to be very large output. But in order to get high milk productivity, you needed to focus on udder attachment. You needed to focus on teat uniformity. You needed to do all those things in order to get there. Otherwise, you're going to be way out of bounds. So it was almost like there was two different things going on at once when it came to selection. They were producing more from a components and a yield standpoint, but they all focus really, really hard on the structure of the animal to get to the correctness and the size and the stability and the stoutness and the right composition in order to like put that engine in the car. Okay. And so Dairy Expo in the TPI index is very correlated, right? So if you're still focusing on tight productivity, kind of cows, what the cows you're seeing there really work well. But net merit is focused much more on like efficiency and reproductive things because that's what really gave out. So now we have a little bit more moderate cow, better reproductive capacity or better reproductive traits and everything, but just not as geared towards that look anymore. That was a
sure.
long, rambling explanation of what I remember of the deviation and how dairy cattle were getting selected for and how it's different than beef
Yeah,
cattle.
I think that's relatable to. I mean, even the beef industry, or it could be, if people took some of those phenotypic traits a bit more serious than the genotypic measurable traits. And it's probably just how the commercial producers prioritizing how they're purchasing bulls and seed stock, right? Like you can look at EPDs and you can say, well, it doesn't really matter if it's, rear hock is in a tick, as long as it's still able to get to the feed bunk and its weaning weight and yearling weight are high enough. And now I can see that. So I'm going to purchase that bull, right? Like if there's a measurable system that somehow deterred or elevated structural correctness on a bull, well, then there's
Yeah.
probably going to become more relevant. But
Yeah.
if structural correctness and balance isn't measurable and it's only measurable by a judge, yeah, it's a bit less reliable, I would say.
Right.
And I'm a
Well,
fan of it too, and I'm saying that. But that
yeah.
is, I mean, that's the downfall of that sector.
Well, when it comes to genetic evaluation, like you could say, they're having, especially in like Western, well, the Front Range of Colorado, especially, but also in Western Nebraska as well, feed yards. Any feed yard, especially if they've got a little elevation behind it, is starting to see what they would normally call pulmonary artery failure, right? So brisket disease or heart failure in cattle that shouldn't be experiencing at that level of elevation. And it's essentially kind of saying that a lot of these long-fed, larger feedlot animals are basically experiencing kind of some sort of heart failure to some degree, and because their structure or their systems aren't being able to support the amount of weight and mass that they're having, right? So it's incredibly detrimental because you have 1,600-pound animals that are worth $3,000 right now, a week away from slaughter, going down. It's a situation where we have an engine bigger than the car can handle it. And what I'm saying is that what you're watching in the Dairy Expo was really, it was like an engineering feat from a genetic standpoint, and it
Sure.
was it was watching someone build a car that could handle a bigger engine while the engine was getting built, right? While the milk production was getting built. Because if you look at, so you're watching the Jersey Show, if you look at one of the number one indicators overall that they found for profitability to Jersey herd on it from a trait standpoint, it was rear udder attachment or rear udder suspension. Okay, because jerseys are very low stature, they tend to be very high production, and one of their biggest downfalls is that they have poor udder suspension, which results in a bag that ends up getting like down too low. It can cause lamus issues, it can cause mastitis issues because it's kind of dragging the manure and all that kind of stuff, and it led to earlier culling. So little things like having an EPD system that can have a rating for decades and decades of like objective classifiers rating udder suspension means that now you can select for rear udder suspension as a metric from a genomic test to fix that problem if that's what you're looking for.
Hmm.
And it like speeds up the phenotypic selection so much.
Yeah.
So back to like I think the original question is like is World Dairy Expo, like the way that they're evaluating cows today, is it still kind of relevant to a commercial cow or how much intertwined? And I would say that just the way that they've gone about it and the objectiveness that they've done it about years, it's a really interesting case study. And yes, those cows do get interwoven back into producing high-end genetics to try and fix structural issues and add type back in when the engine gets running a little bit too hot for what the car can handle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Well, that covers the ruminant part of Ritz and Ruminants. Just kidding. There's a lot of ruminant talk. No, Derek's. Okay, so did you go to? Have you had any? Okay, what's my expo? Kind of bingo card is spotted cow. Have you had spotted cow yet?
We had a few spotted cows last night.
There you go. First night.
Fantastic.
Yep. It's good
We'll
beer.
bring some home.
New
Yep.
Galeria. Is it New Galerius?
Had a chocolate shake yesterday. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Actually, those are
And
two of my favorites. Two of my favorites.
your beers.
Ice cream
Have you had
and
a
beer.
Have you had a grilled cheese for lunch 2 days in a row?
We're starting today on the grilled cheese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to do
And
that
then
2 days.
tomorrow we'll have grilled cheese as well.
That's the one thing about going to dairy, like dairy genetic sales or cow sales versus beef cow sales, is that when you went to a beef cow sale, like you got steaks. Like it was always like, who's gonna have the best steak? I mean, sometimes you have a shaved beef sandwich, but most times it's like big steak supper, the whole fix and all of it, right? It's
Yep.
expensive. It's expensive to treat people that way. When you go
Yep.
to a dairy sale, it'd be like, what do you get? Like whole milk and grilled cheese. I was like, that's so cheap. That's so cheap. It's so much cheaper. It's like 90% cheaper than feeding someone a steak.
If you're lucky, you might have a shake machine in the or a bucket of ice cream. Yep,
Right. So
love
anyway,
it.
okay. Next on the my bingo card, World Dairy Expo bingo card is Fromagination, which is my one of my favorite specialty cheese shops in downtown Madison.
Flow imagination.
Fromagination, From
FRO. Got it.
Imagination.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in
Oh,
Madison.
yeah. It's so if you go to the Capitol building, the state capitol, and it's on the west side of the big square there.
All right.
It's the farmers market. Are you staying through the weekend?
No,
Oh,
we're
you're
coming
gonna
home Wednesday
split it
night.
up.
So,
Oh, okay.
but we need to check that out, right? So it's a specialty cheese shop.
Yeah.
You
So it's
see,
just got just like 1,000 different, hundreds of different kinds of cheeses from all over the world, and like the
yeah,
cheapest cheese is like $15 a pound, and it goes up from there. And every time I went to Expo, I'd go get like 5 or 6 or 7 different things. Katie always liked it. It's always like
yeah,
a big thing, like what you bring home.
yeah.
Get some wine when I get
You
back.
see, and I don't know if this is the case with this shop, but you definitely see more of these mid-sized dairies start to, they'll bring somebody back onto the operation, and then they have to expand it. They have to bring in some value, and then it's really on the retail marketing side of it. So they're opening up if it's a cheese shop, or they're selling ice cream, or they're selling some sort of not byproduct. They're selling the value added product, byproduct.
Yeah.
It's milk. Yeah, they're selling the value added product of the dairy, right? Like they've got to bring that in, and that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, like, look, if you're a 100 cow dairy, 50 cow dairy, even 200 cow dairy, and if you're not in a very, very close proximity to a processor, it's really something to think about, unfortunately,
Yeah,
because it is very, very tough to negotiate. Even someone even to take your milk if you're not, I mean, loading milk directly into a tanker at that degree that they can just drive off.
yeah,
It's just changed so much. So we've milked
yeah,
cows. My family milked cows until I was a senior in high school. And so 85, 90 great Holstein cows.
yeah,
It's a part of it. It's just that is not that common anymore. But ones that do it are definitely looking for a niche market. Kaismeister Dairy, Spink Colony, Kaismeister Creamery, should call it, is
yeah,
awesome. It's my favorite cheese in the whole world. I don't know if it's at for Imagination yet. You'll have to check it out, but it should be. Like it's that quality of cheese,
yeah.
and it's on a gravel road 20 miles west of my house, and they have 120 cows, one of the last colonies that actually still milks, and they do an amazing, amazing
We
job.
need to set up a podcast there.
We should.
Yep,
I can talk to Eli, see if he
yep. That'd
wants
be
to
a
be
good
on.
one.
I wonder if he's already a listener. I'm probably not. But anyway, so they're doing a lot of really creative stuff there. It is really pretty cool. So
Mhm.
also sometimes it sounds like we like when we promote someone like that, like Kaismeister Creamery, like we got paid. Like I feel like Lake Wobegon is like, and
Yeah,
Kaismeister Creamery brought to you today. Come enjoy our
the
specialty
sponsorships
cake
are coming, I'm
specialty.
sure.
They are. I just
Yeah,
want people to know unequivocally, no one pays us to be focused on the Ritz and Remnant podcast.
this is true.
People have tried to pay us to not be talked about on the podcast.
Yeah, that
Like I'll give you
will
money if you
happen.
don't tell the story or don't say this out loud.
Yeah.
But
Please don't mention my business on your podcast next time. Stop it.
all of these mentions are completely grassroots and organic and not paid for in any way, shape, or form. Nor are they planned. We had no intention of talking about that.
No.
Okay, so but I think one of the things that when it's these specialty cheese shops that they could do, and I haven't seen a ton of it. I've seen it with honey. So I've seen people sell like clover honey, right, or lavender honey or whatever, and I'm pretty sure they're
Yeah,
adding food
buckwheat
coloring.
honey,
I think
cinnamon
they're adding
foin honey.
food coloring to make them like all uniquely so different colored.
Yeah.
Like how much purple is really coming through the lavender into the thing. Oh, okay. Speaking of bees, though, did I tell you I had bee pollen the other day?
Be what?
Bee pollen? Okay, I'll get into it later. I
Okay.
gotta finish this up. So people are marketing honey based on what the bees were foraging on when it comes to that
Right.
and giving like nice layers of stuff. I think you got to be real close to that and doing that with cheese,
Hmm.
especially high end $30 a pound cheese. Like, why would you not have like a sandfoin and then you just put a little bit of like pink food coloring in there or something like that to make it pink? Add some aromatic stuff.
Well, we kind of do. I'm going to do it with meat. We do grass fed meat.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
really
right.
affecting the flavor. Well, actually, it is affecting the flavor on that side of it. And
Well,
people are kind of
flavor.
doing on the dairy, right? Grass-fed dairy,
It is, but I think you
organic
could take
dairy.
it one more level. Like, right?
Okay.
So if you like fed garlics or onions to cows, it shows up in the milk. If you ever did like dairy foods judging in FFA, like like weeds and that kind of stuff, you can tell. You can tell the beta carotene and the levels and things, but you can get certain things that have strong odors. I bet we could put together mixes and packages that would affect milk, well, flavor enough that you could actually tell it in the cheese for sure. We just have you developed any of those mixes yet? Have you? Is Renovo focused on this as a market?
It's coming. There's a
Okay.
movie that, do you remember that movie that in the early 2000s that judged, that had dairy products judging in it? And they said, that cow got in the
Napoleon.
garlic patch. It's
Yeah.
Napoleon Dynamite.
It was. It was. That was one of the interestingly the most prominent exposure that the FFA organization ever had was in Napoleon Dynamite.
That actually, it's probably not far
I'm
off.
guessing
Yeah.
that there's like three-fourths of the people in this country that are our age that only know what FFA is because of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yep. So, so get this. Here's a Napoleon Dynamite fact. Chris got to sub in
Okay.
FFA last week, and it was homecoming week, and
Yeah.
so the teacher's like, "Oh, they can just watch a movie while you sub." You know what movie she brought in?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite.
It's rated like PG. It's rated
Yeah,
PG because
there's
there's
nothing wrong
nothing.
with it. But
There
it's just the
isn't.
dumbest humor ever. She said it took them about, 15, 20 minutes, and then they kind of got it, and then they're all just rolling.
First, they're like, "Who's this lady? What's she making us watch?" Uh, that's the crazy thing about it is I remember it being like something my parents would be like, if like, oh, if my parents knew I watched this, they'd be pissed, right? But it wasn't because of like language or like anything naughty. It was so dumb
Yeah,
that it was like you felt disappointed. Like I shouldn't be watching this because it's so
my
stupid,
life is
not
going downhill from watching this.
for violence.
Who knows?
Yeah. I was looking for movies the other day to watch with the girls. Looking for
Yeah.
PG movies that like I might enjoy as well, and then narrowed it down to Smokey and the Bandit and
Okay.
Napoleon Dynamite, which are both PG. And I think that Smokey and the Bandit was just like incorrectly labeled. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that was not a PG movie when it came out. It's not a kids show. Smokey and the Bandit. A lot of adult themes.
Yeah.
That Burt Reynolds was into a lot of adult themes back in the day. I mean, it was Sally Fields. Anyway, it's a good show, but it's not something I had to explain to my kids. We watched the next one too. I had to explain to my kids several times why she ran away from her wedding and all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff from here. Okay, where were we? How did we get down this path? Okay,
Feeding cows
feeding
a
cows, yeah,
diet that affects their milk taste, flavor.
but like positive, like not in a
Yeah.
nasty way. Like, how can we get it to be positive? Well, I shouldn't say that. I would say that specialty cheese shop you're going to, we're not looking for like there's no mild cheddar there. There's no
Yeah.
American craft singles. I think if you went and asked for American craft singles up for imagination,
Yeah.
I think they'd kick you out. I think they would just firmly but politely ask you to leave
You know
if you
how
ask.
I like to affect the flavor of the milk and cheese? Like put things
Oh,
in it, like peppers into pepper jack is really
see, I
good.
don't like that at all. I
What?
don't like it at all. People
It's
put
the
like
best.
cranberries in there,
Yeah, that's pretty
and
good.
no,
Yep.
I don't like it at all.
How about chocolate in your milk?
Nope,
Oh,
just like regular milk. No, I don't like it.
something's wrong with you.
It's okay. This doesn't need to happen. Hey, what's our graze at rent at Bail it?
Well, I was gonna do one, but now that we don't have a jingle, I feel like we shouldn't.
Who
Just
should
hold
wait?
out.
We
We
could
will hold
wait.
out until we have a jingle from one of
Hey,
our listeners or your wife.
okay. All
No,
right. Let's hold up.
I've got
What
one.
okay, but like before that, let's point out what's in the background.
What's the
What can you
back? Can
what
you
can
hear
you
that
hear in
background
the
music?
background? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at the World Dairy Expo, and there's a cow show, and they're playing music. You said that it was an organ? Jared, I have yet to see this organ. I think it's just a recording, isn't it?
It may be recording for some of the minor shows, but it's
Okay.
live during the major ones. So I think if you get to
Okay.
like the whole show or the
Yeah.
and definitely Supreme Row, somebody comes in. They should be up. Scan your camera again, like to the left part of the ring. There should be. Isn't there someone?
Let's
Can you
try it
see like a
again.
speaker box or something up there? somewhere. Yeah, right there. Do you see anybody playing a
I
piano
don't,
or I don't know.
but it's nice, happy music.
Yeah, they might be recording
Maybe.
anymore. That's what signs of the times.
All right. Graze it, harvest it, rent it out. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So we have 3 fields, and the time is now. Okay. So it's early October, and we have a 200 head dairy operation, and we need to make some quality feed. It's been a tough year. We just haven't got any quality feed put up. So that's our goal, right? Those are the stipulations. 200 cow head dairy. We need quality feed, and it's early October. First field is Italian ryegrass. And we're coming up on the fourth cutting of this Italian ryegrass. But what we have is covered in rust. So it's orange. Okay. Second field, it's Stockman. All right. It's one of our alpha grass products. It's a blend of final answer alfalfa with some orchard grass and tall forage fescue. But it's early October and it's been sitting in the windrow for going on day 7 now. Okay. Next one. We had a field of peas and oats that we used for silage in July.
Okay.
And then we had a bunch of volunteers just shattered it, got real dry. So we have this field of volunteer peas and oats, but it's a solid stand and it's a foot tall. And remember, it's early October, but it's lush. Okay, I'm going to repeat them. Italian ryegrass, but it's got a lot of rust. Stockman alpha grass blend, but it's been in the windrow for 7 days. And volunteer peas and oats that are a foot tall. Graze it, harvest
Okay.
it, rent it out.
All right. So I have to graze one. Have to graze one.
Got it.
Have to graze one.
What are you going to
And
put on there
rules.
if you're a 200 head
I
dairy
think
operation?
I think I'm gonna punt on this just because I have to. Just because I have to. I think I'm gonna punt on this one. I'm gonna put dry cows in the rust Italian ryegrass.
Ooh, okay,
I think. I think
okay, yeah,
because I'm afraid of the alfalfa grass. I mean, I think that's gonna be lusher than the Italian ryegrass, and I
yeah,
think that oats could be too. And I won't get any quality feed out of the. I mean, I won't get the quality that I want. Potential toxins and everything for the lactating cows and stuff on the rust Italian ryegrass. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I don't think that's a great option.
hmm.
Like, don't like get a bunch of callers come in next week and be like, we turned our dry cows out on a bunch of rusty Italian ryegrass. That did not go well. I am not a dairy nutritionist, okay? But I would say that that's going to be the safe bet on what I'm going to graze. Okay. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna bail the oats.
You
I'm gonna
are
bail. Yeah. Well,
okay,
no, I'll take that back.
huh?
I'm just worried about like renting how much money I could get out. I think I can get more money out of the stockman, right? I think if I like
That's true.
versatility wise, hay wise, someone's like, oh wow, like really good primo, fourth cutting, like
Yeah, it's only been sitting there for a week.
yeah, then it's been fine. I mean, it hasn't rained here.
We don't know if it's rained or not. Yep.
Oh, we don't know that for sure.
No,
That's
we
true.
don't know.
But it's gonna take a week to dry down. If I
Yeah, it
can bail it
does.
after a week this time of year, then that's just
Days are
normal.
short right now. It's hard to cure out anything for feed.
Days are getting short. So
But you
I would say I'm gonna sell that feed and
okay?
then and do the oats because it's gonna be primo oats hay. But I'm afraid if I like go to like rent it out and be like, hey, come put up oats, everybody's like, ah, oats hay is oats hay because we always put up oats hay so rank,
Yeah,
and sure that it ends up being, you know, it
yeah,
doesn't even bring what grass hay is usually. And this is gonna
true.
be really good. This is gonna be like boot stage, not headed out, right? Oats isn't headed out. The oats is not headed out, right?
Nope, it's not headed out.
So it's gonna be really good feed.
Yeah, really good quality.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna
True.
use that.
Okay. I actually wonder. So I was thinking of harvesting the Italian ryegrass
Mm-hmm.
and then just chopping it, putting up as baleage. I'm not worried about the rust so much. I mean, you're gonna have some fungal
Okay.
spores in it, but it's generally never toxic against livestock. It's gonna get your cutter extremely orange, and it's gonna be kind of
Okay.
nasty, messy that way.
Okay.
Uh, and that grass is super good quality. But I would bet that the volunteer peas and oats at a foot tall is actually pretty close in quality as well. You got a legume in the peas there. It's going to add some protein, but probably not quite as highly digestible as the Italian ryegrass would be. But I think you're right. Yeah, rent out that alfalfa. That's probably the most value, especially for like like a person's the view of a crop is always to go to the norm,
Perception.
right?
Yeah.
See what their perception of alfalfa is like that's got to be the best stuff out there. I'm
Yeah.
going to pay way more for that than I would on the oats. But the
Right.
quality of the oats is probably just as good right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
Rent
not
out.
enough people know about Italian ryegrass. Italian ryegrass is kind of a unique grass to some degree. I mean,
Yeah.
since we're in a part of the world that doesn't, way upper Midwest, doesn't do a lot of, annual ryegrasses of any other kind, which is exceedingly common in other parts of the world, West Coast, Southeast, all that kind of stuff. But there really isn't a good parallel to it because when you explain cool season forages to folks. Like you go through it and you're like, yep, okay, so you got your winter annuals, and after that, then you got oats, and you got forage barley, and you got, spring triticale, and then it's like, what else do you got? It's like, well, we have Italian
Yeah.
ryegrass. And it's like Italian ryegrass was like showing a Jersey in a Holstein fox compared to those other ones, right? So different.
Yeah.
Such a
Yeah.
different beast.
Yeah.
Multiple cuttings, cool season, extremely high forage.
Yeah,
Uh,
so the Italian ryegrass, so it actually does work really well with the dairy industry, especially those that have, so it needs moisture first. So if you're in a cool environment, it should be on your radar. But if you also have manure to get rid of in season or like gray water to get out on a field in season, then Italian ryegrass works really, really well for that too, because it loves nitrogen and needs water. And if you have equipment to get in there and do multiple cuttings, just like you would on alfalfa, because you're going to cut that about every 30 days as well. So you're on top of it and you're harvesting it, and so it can fit really well with a mid-sized dairy that's got their equipment, got some labor, and got manure resources to get back out on the ground. So kind of a cool crop, but not as
it's not.
well utilized in beef country and in the Dakotas. So
No, no, it's not. No, and not used much this way at all. I'd say we've had people experiment with it a little bit, but no, not too much. I've never used it or tried. The other thing the one thing I wanted to point out, like for our beef listeners, that I think the dairy industry does really well, especially the kind of people that are showing the cattle that are in front of you, is that they focus really hard on putting up extremely good quality long stem grass hay to develop heifers on, especially like a young, like a 500 6 weight, 7 weight, 8 weight before breeding, especially. So they want it because they want dry matter. They want it to be good, but they want their cattle to bulk up. We always talk about building the cage, like getting their cattle to like bulk up. And then a lot of times, our low cost rations for developing beef heifers, if they're in a feed yard or feeding them, is a lot of like watery stuff, like silage and stillers and that kind of stuff. And it's like if we do give them some roughage, it's usually really poor quality type stuff, some ground corn stalks, ground straw, ground CRP hay, that kind of stuff. But like we don't do that. Like I've run into a lot of heifers when I breed in the spring that are loose, too loose. It looks like they fed a diet that doesn't actually build capacity and build body mass and things like that. Like a lot of grazing would do, or just feeding a lot of roughages that actually fill them up, like good quality forages. So they
yeah,
really focus on that, and I think it helps. They end up, developing those cattle for what they want to be long term, rather than just like what's the cheapest way to put on
sure,
lean.
yeah, yeah.
Well, you better back to the booth. Is there somebody at the booth right now, Justin?
Starts in about 15 minutes.
Okay,
We'll be
because
at the
they
trade
will
show.
find you. They will go by with a clipboard.
Really? If
Yeah,
they
they'll
get
write you up. Yeah, if there's
really?
nobody at your booth when they come around, they'll write you
Oh my
up.
goodness. Yeah, I've heard
And
it's fairly strict.
if you get written up, then you can lose your spot.
We do not want that at the World Dairy Expo.
You do not want to get
It'd be a
handcuffed.
black eye for the Ritz and Roommates podcast.
It would.
All right. Well, here's one more view of the World Dairy Expo before we sign off. Once again, if you have a graze it, harvest it, rent it out, please send it in. We've got one more that was sent in. We'll cover next week. And then we'll also get that jingle rocking and rolling. So, all righty. Appreciate you listening. See
Take
you,
care,
Jared.
everybody.
Bye.